Hey, good evening, and Brian's not clearing his throat, and welcome to the Open Door Community Church After Service podcast. I'm Pastor Joe.
And I'm Pastor Brian. Thanks for joining us tonight, and I hope you're having a great summer day here in Oregon or wherever it is you're listening to this, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad to hang out with you, Joe.
It's a lovely thing. We did not, our shirts don't match, but they are similar. I just want to acknowledge that right now.
Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about today. Probably I actually got some feedback from the sermon. Did you get any? Because I certainly did.
No, I didn't get any feedback. We're not going to do the small talk up front.
Fine, go ahead and get the small talk.
I don't know if I had anything to talk about.
I don't either. Yeah,
I'll tell you just real quick. I'll tell you what we've been watching on TV.
Okay.
We've been watching a documentary about the marriage of Paul Newman and
okay.
Well, it's it's intriguing. It's fantastic. It's very well done. And of course, forgot his wife's name. Oh, jeez.
Right. Well, while you're doing that, I've been watching a documentary on Pearl Harbor, which was interesting. So, not as interesting maybe as yours. Do you want me to talk for a few more minutes? Okay, so yeah, I'll talk for a moment. How's that? Okay, yeah. So yeah, I've been watching that. What else did we see? I don't know. I feel like I watched Boss Level. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's a decent, fun little flick. It's a little violent, but oh my gosh, it's just a hoot and a creative little story. So I don't know. That's what I've been watching. Other than that, we're getting ready for the yard sale. Big church yard sales starting tomorrow. Everybody's out there picking up and putting things out, and already had to shoo people away.
Yeah, well, that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
I've told you about my trauma related to garage sales, right?
No.
My mom decided she wanted to do a garage sale, and she decided she was going to make it an event. So there was going to be beverages and hot dogs. It was just going to be an event,
Okay.
And people showed up and they picked through our stuff and left. They didn't care about any of the other stuff. And it was just kind of embarrassing. And I love you, Mom. But that was just, I think her understanding of what a garage sale was not what, it didn't connect with like cultural norms when it comes to those things. We don't do garage sales. We lay stuff out on the in the driveway, and we say free. And and if somebody doesn't take it, we donate it.
Yeah.
Something like that. But
it is a weird American thing, and maybe it's only American. I really don't know the world thing, but you could put all your crap, your garbage, things that you don't want outside, and people will take it because they think it's treasure. Like, okay. And sometimes they'll give you money for it. It's just an unusual thing. But yeah, you got to pay attention to the culture. I think it's a great idea to make an event, but people don't expect that. So it's probably not going to work.
Because it's unexpected, people just don't know how to respond. It's like when you go to buy a car and you don't have to like negotiate down the price. You go, what's going on? It doesn't make sense. But I will say, we've been doing some decluttering in our house, and the number of trips I've made to the dump has been really depressing. And I don't mind going to the dump, but going there and realizing all the stuff that people are throwing away, that we're throwing away, I think that's what makes it uniquely American, is that we have so much, and we don't realize.
Stuff.
We don't realize.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, we don't realize. Like in our family, we're like, oh, we have 3 of these. How'd that happen? We forgot we bought that one. Oh, that one's still got tags on it.
Yeah. Years ago, I don't know how many years, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Jesse started getting into this thing called minimalism. I don't know if people know it, but it's trying to live with as little as possible. And people take it to an extreme, which I don't agree with, of course. But having less is not a bad thing. Like I have like 2 jeans. That's it. And when one of them wears out, I replace it. So I have one that I wear, and then when I don't when that one's dirty, I put the other one on and wash that one. I try to have just what I need on some of these things. And it's so freeing, if not to mention the fact that you have a lot more space in your house.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've thought about, is like, why I've got a stack of clothes that I'm like, I kind of like this, but I'm never going to wear it if I've got something that I like better that's an option.
Yeah.
So why do I
have you heard of
it?
Maria Kondo?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so her thing is, you hold the piece of clothing and you go, does this give me joy to wear this, to have this? If it doesn't, you say thank you for it, and you pass it on. Why wear something that's not going to make you happy?
Yeah. Yep, definitely. Well, anyway, there's our small talk. Thank you,
There you
folks,
go.
for dealing with the banter. It's something that I kind of need as an on-ramp to the podcast. I don't know what it is. It's just something.
I like our small talk, and I've had a lot of people say the same thing. So I know there's a lot here to get at. So I kind of jumped the gun. So.
All right, I'm going to say one more thing before we go.
Okay.
That is, thank you to Jesse for sending out the volunteer request for Hood to Coast, for my Hood to Coast team. I'm all set.
All set.
And I'm relieved. And thank you very much, those of you who considered, even if you didn't like to act on that. So thanks.
You're crazy to do that, but okay. Yeah.
We all we got to do stuff that scares us sometimes to get us to move. So
yeah, it's just sounds like 24 hours of torture. But
just in a van with 5 other people who smell terrible. It's fantastic.
All right, Ruth chapter 3. Ruth chapter 3. It's the part of the story in Ruth where Ruth is sent to Boaz on the threshing floor by her mother-in-law, Naomi. She meets Boaz having prettied up a little bit, showered and put on nice clothes and put on some perfume, and goes to the threshing floor, which is in the, it's pitch black. It's this workplace, and meets Boaz there in the middle of the night, and they have a little bit of a conversation. She proposes marriage through this unusual cultural expression of uncovering his feet, knees, somewhere, and he says, I'm going to take care of you, and then sends her home in the morning with lots of food, and he's heading to town. And that's the basic story. And I had a couple of points. One was just that this is an image of marriage, and marriage is an image of created by God for how he wants to relate to us with intimacy and care. And I remember thinking before the sermon, there's not a lot of in-depth descriptions of a married couple's life, not like this. And I think that's a really good, there's some really good models there for us on how we should, if we can pick through some of the cultural pieces and see the principles behind them. And so that's why I talked a little bit about that. And then and I did actually, like I said to you before the podcast, I have several comments to get through. But what were some of your thoughts before we get into that?
Well, I'll share one, and it's really just, it's an observation. And that's it. It's when you talked about the idea that, Naomi said, hey, you need to prep yourself. I think you mentioned the paint. Occasionally you need to paint the barn door or the gate or something like that. It reminds me of my LDS friends a little bit. Again, just an observation in that, like, if you go to Utah, and I spent a lot of time in Utah, it's like there's it's something about the LDS Church has this standard about how the women relate to their husband in the way they're supposed to present themselves, and to take care of themselves. And part of me is a little offended, and also a little like, well, who cares? I mean, it's part of the covenant relationship that says, hey, I love this person, and if I choose to take care of myself in a certain way because I want this to be a gift to them, that's me demonstrating love to them, not servitude, not,
right.
It's not intended to be demeaning. So I just wanted to share, kind of how my brain works on some of these things, where like,
and
I
that
have
was
to
a
process.
hot topic. that was the hot topic. That was definitely a hot topic. I had multiple people talk to me on that this little issue of her prettying up and such.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
as one person.
before you go into it, I'm going to say one more thing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
If I remember being single, and but it's been a long time, and there's a sense of I want I want to look my best. I want to be at my best because I want this person to see me in my best light. I'd also like to see them to see me who I am, and to be attracted to me for who I am. But there's also
Right.
there's a whether we want to call it shallow or not, there's a part of peacocks, the feathers. I mean, there's a certain part of nature that says that if we are attracted to somebody or want to attract somebody, that we're going to present ourselves in a specific
Yeah.
way, male or female. So I just
Right.
wanted to share that because I remember, putting on Drakkar and combing my hair in a certain way and putting my certain clothes on and that kind
Right.
of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, forgive me for
No,
interrupting.
yeah. Let me read the comment question, and then let me comment on some of this. Is the level of beauty that Ruth is at on the threshing floor the same as what a prostitute would do normally? Because continuing to read the comment, because it seems kind of manipulative to go to a not drunk but sleepy unmarried man looking like that. Yes, the body matters, but so much less than the values, ideals, and the heart of the person. So let me tell you a little bit. I've thought a lot about trying to communicate this, and I'm going to be asking for your help on this.
Sure.
First of all, I think the topic, this whole issue of the outside inside stuff, I think it's really hard for us as Americans to really parse that out, because well, one of the things I'm trying to push against is there are some Christians, and we know them, they go one way, where all they do is they look good on the outside. And I'm going to pick on women here, I'm sorry, that spend 2 hours doing their makeup and everything else, and yet
Joel
actually,
Osteen.
right, who looks amazing on the outside, but but there's no character, there's no godliness, there's nothing, right? And so that's one side. And then the other side, though, is the ultra fundamentalist conservative people who are like, don't dye your hair. It's sinful to do any kind of beautification of the body in any way. It's like, wait a minute. Both of these streams are not okay, because
Right.
you don't see that. I know there's the Timothy one where he says that a woman's beauty should not be on the outside with golden hair and earrings and blah, 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 but it should be with inner beauty. Of course that's the case. Yes, we need to make sure that that's the issue, but we can go so far on that side that we become and it's generally a conservative thing, but maybe not, that we think of the body as almost dirty and nasty, and that any kind of paying attention to that is not good. And that's what I'm trying to push against these two sides. That's kind of where I was thinking about.
Well, there's three things that pop in my head right away. First is we've discussed the head and the heart, right? If we're too much into the emotionalism of worship, that's not a good thing. If we're too much into the heady part, the intellectual part of worship or study or whatever, that's not good, right? I mean, there's a balance there where they're both good, right? We need to be intellectual, we need to be thoughtful, we need to be wise, and we need to let our hearts be a part of that as well. Faith versus works, right?
There's a tension. Yeah.
Right. There's a tension, and you've heard me use the term dialectic before, which is they can both exist. I think as a Christian culture, we struggle with the gray, that these things can exist. The idea that sex is created by God, and so sex is
And
a
beautiful
thing.
good thing.
Right.
It's not dirty.
Right. But any good thing can be turned on its head
Right.
and be a bad thing. And so
Right.
I think that's kind of where I come at this is, there's so many ways that this situation could have gone wrong. The circumstances could have gone wrong, as you
Yeah.
described it,
Yeah.
right? This is walking a very thin line, but I think it also presents, it's a wonderful representative of the balance that we're talking about. It's that this is a good woman who,
She is a very good
right,
woman. Yeah.
right. And I think she was presenting, as you stated, I am interested in marriage, effectively, right? And
Right.
took certain careful steps to ensure that she would not be misconstrued, that her actions wouldn't be misconstrued.
But he could have misconstrued it, and that was the point. That was
Sure.
a piece I made. But go ahead and finish your point.
Well, I do wonder how dark it was. There's part of me that's like, well, what was the point of getting yourself all well presented if nobody could see anyway, right? So I wondered about that. I don't have an answer for it, but I think, she was like, this is, he was startled, and she was very clear in, this is who I am, this is why
Right.
I'm here, and again, so many different ways it could have gone wrong, and God took care of it.
And God took care of it. Yeah, and that was one of another point that one of the people made was that the kindness that I brought out, his kindness, and not instantly being harsh with her, because he could have taken her as a prostitute and moved and went that direction. He could have not taken her a prostitute and still went that direction, and no one would have felt bad about him and would have went, well, she was there.
Yeah.
She must have asked for it. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a very strong point that you made, that culturally he could have responded in a completely different way, and
And no one would have had a problem with it.
nobody would have had a problem with it. So again, the orchestration of God, the goodness of these two individuals, it's
Amazingly good.
It's a magnet.
And so, and part of that point was in the oddness, especially in our culture, of his and her concern for the extended family. It's both of them are not just concerned about themselves in this moment. They're thinking about Naomi too. Because she, as I brought up, she didn't go after all these other possible men. She wants him because she knows he's going to take care of her. And as we're going to see with Boaz, and the hint with with his phrase, all that you ask, and what we're going to see in chapter 4 is he's going to not just make sure Ruth is okay, but Naomi too. They're both concerned about the larger family, which is such a rebuke to our society that's so individualistic, that's so thinking only about ourselves, and what the impact on ourselves and not of the community.
It makes me consider arranged marriages. Again, one of those things that sounds terrible, but could have good intentions. If you're following your heart, I remember thinking about how atrocious the whole idea of that was. You should be able to love who you want to love and that kind of stuff. And I think about my utter lack of wisdom and sense and all that stuff. And I think, and now, at my age, I reflect and go, gosh, I would have loved somebody to set me up with somebody who was I could connect with.
Somebody that was older, who had your best interest and their best interest and some wisdom, and that you knew was going to actually act on your best interest. Oh my gosh. Yes,
All
absolutely.
the pain that would have saved. I mean, I ended up in the right place.
Yeah.
But it took I took a lot of bruises and gave out a few along the way.
Right. I mean, yes, of course, arranged marriages, there's a lot of really bad things that can happen with it, certainly. Yeah. But listening to your elders, which is a point that was clearly made in the passage, that she is listening to her mother-in-law and following her, and that's right along the lines of what God said. If you obey your parents, there's a blessing for you. There's a blessing if you listen to the elder who especially when those have wisdom and
Yeah.
they care about you. Yeah. The other point that this my commenter made had to do with, is this manipulative? And I think that's an interesting conversation to have. The distinction. I think there's a distinction between persuasion and manipulation. I don't think they're the same. And I from my research, I think there is a difference. What do you think about that? Do you think she was manipulative? Is there a distinction between persuasion and being manipulative?
There's definitely a distinction. Manipulation, I think, is, and I could look it up in Webster's, but the way I think about it is, positioning circumstances in such a way that somebody would do something they wouldn't otherwise do, and not necessarily to the benefit of that person.
That's key,
right?
Yeah.
If persuasion is, I think I know what's best for you and best for me, and I'm going to convince you of that.
Right.
I'm going to persuade you that this is the direction we should go because it's to our benefit, where manipulation is one-sided.
Manipulation also seems a little bit like there's a hiddenness to it. Your hidden motive, you're not disclosing that you're trying to do it, versus persuasion, everything's out on the table. You're saying, this is what I really think is good for you. There's no deception. There's no controlling. It's trying to move someone in a particular way, but it's not necessarily, but the person knows this. It's obvious that they're trying to do that, and they're not trying to. So that's what I think. And I don't. So in this case, I don't think Ruth or Naomi is trying to persuade him. I think she's trying to make a good case.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here a bit.
Yeah.
Perhaps the person who was asking the question was wondering if Ruth's actions, and the way she presented herself, etc., convinced Boaz to go a direction that he probably wouldn't have, otherwise, and that maybe wasn't best for him, but that there are definitely things, if we look back on our life, stupid things that we've done that in the moment we felt they were justified, and in retrospect we were going, well, I was an idiot. Where you realize that that really wasn't what I wanted, but I was weak. And so maybe this person is wondering if they were playing on his weakness in some way. He had been drinking. She presented herself in a way that maybe, could be, we talked about, she could be misconstrued as a prostitute. So what does that say? So I can see how that person may have gotten,
at least wondered
about that. And I think the way that's avoided is the innate goodness of these two individuals and the careful way that they engaged, because they were grounded and their foundation was they were good, very well-intentioned people.
And another point with that strengthens that is the instantaneous response from Boaz. It's like he doesn't think about it. At least that's the impression in the text, is that he instantaneously went, yep, I want to do this too. It's like he's thought about it for months maybe, but he thought, she's going to go after somebody else. She's a godly woman. She's a wonderful person. She's younger than me. She's going to want a young guy or maybe a richer guy or something, but not me. But as soon as it became clear that, oh, Boaz, I want you, he's like, yep, so do I. and it was like there's no hesitation and zero reluctance, neither at that moment or as we continue to see down in the next day. He is fully on board with this whole program.
It makes me wonder if the foundation of the foundation of their approaches was humility. He was not assuming anything for him. Like, he wasn't thinking, maybe she'd want to marry me. It was, oh, I know how this world works.
Right.
Um, and for her, it was, I need to present myself in the best possible way. Here's a very successful man, who is good to his people. I'm I'm from another country and considered
Right.
nobody would bat an eyelash if they treated me coarsely because of racism in that time. So entering that, each with their own bedrock of humility, gave them the opportunity to be really vulnerable and then discover that they both want the same thing.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, that gets me excited because it reminds me of that romanticism of youth. That's like, what, you like me?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think there is romance here. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful thing. And he wants her and she wants him. And at the same time, it does cost him. It is very costly to him, as we're going to see this coming week. But he wants to pay the cost.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to pay the cost, as we're going to see, the purchasing of the land. It's like, that's fine. It's worth it. But so, yeah, it's an interesting and challenging little passage with lots of little things, with the manipulation and the threshing floor stuff, the night, the dealing with the body. I tried to, aware that there were children in the audience, I was like, okay, how do I say this stuff?
I understand.
Without being too crass, or like, Daddy, what's a prostitute?
Well,
like, no.
I think this story is a wonderful illustration, though, of how we tend to project our own cultural norms onto Bible stories, right? That we either are naive about what's happening, or we think it's worse than it is. Like, well, she uncovered his feet. That's weird. Okay.
Right.
Or, and what? Oh, that it's not our world. These aren't our norms. And if it happened today, it would happen in a completely different way.
Right.
I think the results would be the same, that the two people would get together, but it
would be different.
This is a story of generational love.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a wonderful meeting of people, in unforeseen way that only God could orchestrate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we don't know all the details of what it all means. I mean, there clearly is indications that gesture had to do with marriage. It had to do with intimacy, but there's not a sense that there's anything sexual happening at all. Right. But at the same time, it's not something that would happen publicly, and they can't talk publicly, which I didn't bring up, by the way. Why did this whole thing have to happen was because it is inappropriate for a woman to approach a man for a private conversation in that culture. It's not possible. Whether her or Naomi, there's no way to have this conversation except for in this moment like this.
Yeah.
So she waited months, huh?
Clandestine.
Right. It had to be. She had to figure out a way to privately have a conversation with him to say, hey, look, Boaz, I want to marry you. Because he was respecting her choice. And so, anyways, crazy stuff. Fun. But we're gonna find out on Sunday what happens after she goes home and he goes into town. And Mr. So-and-so is going to be exposed for the selfish person he is, and Boaz is just going to go up even a notch higher. So,
family redeemer, what?
Yep. So, anyways.
All right.
You guys have a great night. Thanks for joining us. Again, if there's questions on this topic, that we can clarify, please try to put them in there, and I'll see if I can answer them. That's it, Joe.
All right, I'm gonna go eat some food.
All right. I think I have some pizza available. So I will
All right.
see you guys on Sunday, and God bless. Take care.
Take care, guys. Bye.